By now, you've heard what happened earlier today. Pretending it didn't happen won't make us kinder. Charlie Kirk was shot, and within minutes the internet did what it always does. It squeezed a human life into a tidy headline and a quick take. If your chest feels hollow, that's the sound a culture makes when it forgets that people are people. I usually leave space for details to settle before speaking, but this is one of those moments when we have to name what we are losing the basic discipline of seeing the person in front of us before we sort them into a team. I want to do this carefully. I'm not here to pour gasoline on a fire for clicks or points. I want to talk about humanity, about how we handle disagreement without stripping the other side of their face. But if you've lived long enough to watch tempers spike, fall, then spike again, I want to hear from you. Tell me when you first felt like a line had been crossed, or when you saw a community pull back from the edge. Leave your thoughts below, keep them honest, and keep them grounded in real experience, because that is where wisdom tends to hide. Here is the immediate backdrop. Charlie is 31, on a brand new tour, slated to speak at Utah State University. Before he even reached the venue, more than 1,000 signatures stacked up from people insisting he shouldn't be allowed on campus. That number carries weight, not because signatures are policy, but because they reveal fear. Fear that a microphone in the wrong hands might undo the story you tell yourself about the world. To its credit, the university affirmed free speech and the exchange of ideas. They said he was coming, and they meant it. You don't gather that many signatures against a single speaker unless you have decided the person is dangerous, not because he is violent, but because his ideas might crack the shell of your certainty. If you've watched him, you know the format. He calls disagreement to the front of the line and walks toward it. He pushes personality to the side and tests claims under weight. That is rare. A lot of public figures can't do it, won't do it, or fake it with screened questions and compliant critics. When it is honest, it is bracing. It also feels threatening to people whose identities are fused to positions that have never been pressure tested in public. Because scrutiny doesn't just challenge an argument, it exposes the scaffolding holding a worldview together. And campus has been feeling this pressure for years. Berkeley in 2017 turned a set of lectures into a police operation with barricades and smashed glass. Middlebury in 2017 ended with a professor injured while escorting a controversial guest to safety. Those aren't tonight's story, but they rhyme with it. When institutions lose the muscle memory for peaceful disagreement, the vacuum fills with spectacle shouting, shoving, canceling, and then, if no one draws a line, something worse. You can feel the slope, and once you've skidded a few times, you recognize the gravel. What stunned me, beyond the terrible moment itself, was how fast some corners of media and social media sprinted to frame the man instead of grieve the person. Not whatever your politics. Don't celebrate harm. Instead, team jerseys and cold utility. Will this headline help my side win the hour? That machine is efficient. It turns shock into content, content into dopamine, and dopamine into more division. We have all seen it, and if we are honest, we have all fed it. I'm asking you to be different here. Speak plainly. Mourn without gloating. Refuse to let the story become a trophy for anyone. We can be better than the algorithm, and we have to start right now. Choose patience over performance, truth over tribe, neighbor over narrative. Here is where the framing machine shows its teeth. Within the first hour, takes calcified not a wounded man but a token, a storyline, a prop to be pushed or pulled by whoever needed what. The speed is the tell. When grief gets no daylight before slogans arrive, you are staring at an industry, not a community. Do not outsource your conscience to an industry. Hold the moment. Refuse to chant. A country can survive bad headlines. It cannot survive our habit of turning human pain into team sport. Let the person remain a person long enough to steady us. We have watched this pattern too many times. A live event gets clipped, subtitled, repackaged, and shipped through 1,000 accounts, then returned as confirmation of what we already believed. That is how a controversy becomes a career path. It does not matter if the first narrators are wrong by a mile. The correction never travels as far as the outrage. Once a face is strapped to a tribe, pain landing there becomes, for some, a kind of currency. That is how you get posts that read like victory dances over a hospital bed. A crisis turned into a scoreboard. Since 2016, the temperature has climbed like a fever you cannot shake. We saw a gunman open fire on members of Congress at a weekday baseball practice. We saw judges placed under round-the-clock protection, and later, an armed man arrested near a justice's home. We saw a former president narrowly survive an attempt on his life while speaking to supporters. And we watched the replay more times than we will admit. There is no neat partisan map. People on the right and the left have been threatened, struck, or pushed into hiding. This is not a team problem. It is civic. And it grows wherever contempt pools. Permission grows where language erodes. Call a neighbor a monster long enough and someone will treat the word like a warrant. Stop granting yourself moral credit for cruelty. I do not care whose colors you wear. If you think a bullet settles a debate, you are admitting the weakness of your argument, not the danger of your opponent. Ideas are not defeated by muzzle flashes. They fall to better ideas, patient exposition, and the slow labor of persuading people who do not owe you agreement. That is the old work, the necessary work, the only work that endures. You can already predict the next cycle. A rush to say it was not political, or if it was, that it was understandable. A rush to blame his words, or the people he platformed. A rush to draw the widest circle of blame when it suits the storyline, and the narrowest circle when it does not. Notice the asymmetry. When the victim is from your tribe, motive matters, rhetoric matters, dehumanization matters. When the victim is from the other tribe, everything becomes random, or deserved, or a topic to revisit only after the next news cycle makes it safe to care. Bring this back to the campus where the night began. Before a single sentence was spoken, 1,000 signatures tried to fold a conversation closed. The university said the conversation would go on, and that mattered. A campus that forgets how to stage disagreement becomes a campus that stages spectacle, and spectacle attracts people bored of talking and eager for dominance. If you disinvite a voice because it unsettles you, the unsettledness migrates. It does not disappear. So argue back, prepare better, walk in with your best research and your best grace, and make your case to anyone who cares to listen. Here is the standard I am asking you to adopt. You do not have to like the man to refuse to cheer his suffering. You do not have to endorse his positions to condemn the act. The hard part is holding your own side to the rule you demand of theirs, refusing what you would never allow if colors were reversed. Do the unfashionable thing. Refuse the algorithmic rush. Do not share the clip that flatters your team until the dust settles. Speak like a neighbor. Mourn without gloating. Extend ordinary decency tonight. Statistics help us name the trend without losing the human center. In 2017, there were roughly 4,000 recorded political threat cases. By 2021, that count climbed past 9,000. 1 in 5 Americans, depending on the poll and phrasing, say some form of political violence could be justified. Read that again, slowly. If you seat 5 ordinary people at a table, odds are one of them is entertaining the idea that force might substitute for persuasion. That is not a headline to scroll past. It is a mirror we are afraid to hold. Numbers cannot mourn, but they can warn, and tonight they are ringing. This drift did not appear from nowhere. Platforms built to connect us discovered that agitation travels further than empathy. Engagement rewarded fury with reach, and reach rewarded certainty with fame. The 2021 whistleblower disclosures pulled back a curtain when outrage spikes. The graphs smile, and smiling graphs keep the lights on. No conspiracy is needed when the algorithm's only commandment is time on site. Add anonymity, add a feed that mostly returns the faces you already agree with. And you have a factory for contempt. That factory turns real pain into content, and content into imitation. History is not an exorcism, but it is a teacher. The 1960s and 70s were scarred by assassinations that tore at the country's nerves: a president in Dallas, a civil rights leader in Memphis, a senator in Los Angeles. The wound never fully closed, it merely scarred. In 1981, a president was shot outside a hotel, and the nation held its breath. We like to imagine we matured past that fever. We did not. The fever cooled, then the room warmed again, and we forgot how quickly language curdles into permission when contempt turns fashionable. Bring it back to tonight. Numbers matter, but the person matters more. Behind the claims and counterclaims is a simple truth: a life is not a prop. I know what comes next: the drafting of this horror into policy wars before sunrise. The script is familiar. Some will insist the object is to blame, not the will. Others will insist the will is sanctified by the cause, not the act. I'm asking you to resist the binary and do something older, harder, and better: mourn fully, argue honestly, and refuse the warm bath of tribal certainty. Do not normalize this. Do not let your timeline teach you that cheering is brave, or that silence is complicity when the only approved sentence ends with a smirk. Courage, in this hour, looks like refusing the joke at the edge of cruelty, refusing the clip that dehumanizes, refusing to write the other side's worst member onto every face you oppose. It looks like keeping the door open for arguments instead of barricading it with petitions and broken glass. It looks like admitting that your side has crossed lines before, and deciding to draw better ones. Here is the work I'm committing to, and I'm asking you to join me. Start with language: speak about opponents as neighbors, not infestations. Start with discipline: share less, verify more, and allow time for facts to breathe. Start with presence if you attend an event to oppose a speaker. Bring your best case and your best composure. No one ever lost a durable argument to a mob. They lost to patience, evidence, humor, and clarity repeated across years. Let that be the craft we practice, not the cheap adrenaline of performative outrage. And yes, I'm praying for everyone shattered by tonight: the family, The friends, the colleagues who will wake to a colder morning than the one they expected. No matter where you live on the map of ideas, keep your humanity tonight. Leave a word below that sounds like a human wrote it to another human. Refuse the speed that makes mistakes. Refuse the malice that makes enemies. And refuse the despair that makes violence feel inevitable. There is still time to choose the harder, better. Weigh ideas over intimidation, persuasion over force. A future built by argument rather than fear. Hold the line, hold your voice, and hold on to mercy.